Hello everyone, welcome back to Asturis in City Skylines. We started building the main station right in the center of the city last time. It is a huge project, it's going to take us a long time, it's going to be built on many different levels, and it will combine the flying train, going to the space elevator, high-speed railway, urban railway, trams, and buses. We already finished the basic layout for all three trains, even though there are still some details to figure out. But anyway, today I would like to build one of the many surface areas around the station together with the main tram stop. First, let's do some planning, because like I explained before, planning is really important at the start of this series. This is what I quickly came up with during one of the live streams, a very rough plan of the tram network. Where all the lines go from the center is not very relevant at this point, and it's also not set in stone, but what's important is that there will be 4 directions converging at the station. This is the detail of the station, and I didn't want to do like a simple 4-way intersection, so that's why we split one of the directions going under the main platforms, so they will have 2 parallel stops at that wedge between the railways. One of those directions will turn, one will go straight at the crossing, so let's go build it. We are going to start by defining some of the basic geometry, the basic layout of this area. For this, I'm going to be using the Pevex's cobblestone inserts, not exactly fitting Asturis, but at this point I didn't really have a fitting track to build this station with, so later I will talk about probably how I had to customize a certain different asset in the road editor. Now, also what's important is to get the basic idea about buildings in this place, because we're obviously dealing with multiple levels, and the buildings kind of need to just fit all these different networks that are present in here. So not only do I need to make them fit between the railways, but also need to provide something that's going to be somewhat mixed, incorporated with the actual tram networks. And this particular ferry terminal from Stockholm is absolutely perfect for it, because it has those little corridors on the bottom level. This is obviously converted into PO as well, made higher so that the actual surface level is going to be just stretched with PO. There's probably going to be some shops or something down below later. And on this level of the tram level, let's call it, there's going to be that corridor that cut through the building. Yeah, this particular one. And there are also going to be like entrances to the actual tram platform that's going to be on that track that goes parallel to that main avenue. So overall, this is a perfect fit of a building. It's just cut a bit more abruptly on one side, but we can just fill that with different buildings. That's not really all that critical. Now, what is critical though is to define where exactly these tracks go, because those little drawings that I showed you before, they didn't really dealt with this, right? So I had to do some kind of planning in here, and to be completely honest, I'm not really sure about it just yet, because we have these parallel tracks, and that's something that I definitely wanted to include, because just a 4-way intersection here would be just absolutely boring, right? And those parallel tracks, they are going to go into that little park area. Well, it's actually not going to be a little park at all. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, the station is built so that when you get off the trains, especially the high-speed train, you are going to see the space elevator in the distance, because there's going to be like a long park going all the way to the bay, where nothing is going to obstruct the view for you, right? So I thought that maybe it might be a good idea to have like parallel tram tracks go on both sides of that park, because the park is probably not going to be that small actually. It might be, reasonably wide, or maybe those tram tracks could just go into the building blocks somehow, maybe go on different levels or something like that, and then they are just going to just emerge at the bay, at some kind of a waterfront. Anyway, that's not really important right now. It's obviously going to be important later when I'm going to be building that. So, my future me is going to deal with that issue. But right now, I really wanted to just have those parallel tracks in order to have this parallel stop at this point or at this place that I'm doing right here. Like I said, just to make it more interesting. Now, also just to make this place a lot more interesting, I'm going to build like a bus station at the bottom, at the surface, because, why not? The city is not really going to have that much bus infrastructure around, because I would really like to focus more on the railways and the trams and all that. but why not include some buses here and there? This is probably going to be the biggest bus station if I'm not going to decide to build some kind of like an outskirts station similar to what I decided in Aurelia, but this might be, a good start. So it's not going to be the biggest one, like I said. It's just going to have like one loop road. It also has these little like roads that are going below the platforms, but that's just like a fake road, just indicating that there might be some kind of parking garages for the buses, right? I'm thinking that this is probably going to be mostly like long-range bus station, so that buses from outside of the city, from the countryside probably, where the trains don't go, are going to arrive at the station, so that, people who are arriving into the city might just immediately transfer to the flying trains if they want to go into the space elevator. They don't need to do any kind of changes at the border of the city to just go into the station already, right? Now, these kinds of tracks that I'm doing here. So I finally decided that I am going to keep using the Akruas LRT networks because they are just awesome. They are just the best tram networks out there, and especially the tunnels. The tunnels are absolutely great. I absolutely loved them when I did them in Aurelia for the first-person rides, and that's kind of what I'm preparing for in here as well, because these, I'm definitely trying to make them look good from the first-person view, so might as well just use the tunnels right at the start. Now, there's a bit of a problem though, because these are not exactly tunnels, are they? They are not going underground, they are just going below the platforms. And first of all, there is a problem with the portals, the transitions into the tunnel from the elevated or surface segments. Now, these transitions, they are very tall, and they were cutting into the level of the urban railway, as you could have seen in the time-lapse. So that's the first issue, and you can't really get rid of that unless I made it so that that transition kind of was hidden below a platform or something, but it was just so messy to deal with that. And also, I don't want to have that transition because I'm kind of building my own transition in here. Well, actually, there is no transition basically at all. There's just that station track and then like a sudden vertical portal into the tunnel version, right? So ideally, I would want to force the game to not build the transitions. And it is possible using, I believe, the network skins and the node controller to force it, but it's not exactly stable. If you are going to change anything around the network with Move It, it's kind of going to update and the game is just going to force the transition anyway. So I created a customized version of this particular light rail network, and I made it so that it's not going to have the transition at all. I mean, it is going to have the transition, but the transition has the same model as the tunnel already. So that's like a little trick that you can do for certain networks, well, actually all networks, if you are going to just mess around with the road editor. And also what I did is that I made, I believe, the surface network to actually have stations or stops, the ability to have stops without wires, by the way, because I believe that the bridge version of this particular network, I made it so that it's wire only, so that later I'm just going to be able to decorate it. So I kind of conveniently, let's say, created like a multi-purpose network that is going to be just used for these kinds of detailing purposes of these stops, elevated stops in particular. I uploaded it to the workshop. It's unlisted there with Klus's permission, of course. And I'm going to make it public when, sometime in a couple of years when I'm going to release this save file, so that, all these kinds of customizations are not going to prevent it from being released, right? So, right from the start, just like I did with the space elevator, I'm preparing for that eventuality, let's say, all right? Anyway, we are almost done, and it's kind of taking shape, this place. And this was actually the point of building this entire project when I was completely sure how this place needs to be, and this was just the detailing that was just completing it. So this is usually the most satisfying part because like I said, you are already kind of done with the rough shape. You already know how this place is going to I suppose turn out looking, and you're just making sure that you get there, right? So this is always kind of satisfying to just put all this together because you don't really need to think about it all that much anymore. But anyway, I'm creating these kinds of surfaces because this place is obviously going to be multi-level, and I'm trying to make it so that it is going to have reasonable capacity. The surfaces for the platforms of the tram stops are going to be reasonably large so that they will accept some reasonable amount of people, right? And also at this point, thinking about the connectivity between the different levels. At this point, I didn't build any of those invisible paths through the area. We are probably going to dedicate a whole episode for that because it's going to be absolutely huge. And it's not even going to be finished because the station is not finished yet. But I'm really looking forward to people finally using all these places because it's just absolutely huge. Now, also, these kinds of trams, I really want to treat them as like streetcars, right? So that they are going to be sharing the same levels with pedestrians and later even cars. So at this point, I'm really trying to make it so that people are going to be allowed to cross these tracks on the same level. Which is, kind of normal in real life. The trams would obviously not go all that fast in this area, and there will be some kind of like systems to, make sure that people are aware of the incoming trams or things like that. So I really like that in real life as well, when you have these kinds of places where trams just share the exact same place. People are not really banned from using the entire open areas, and it's just, very natural kind of looking, and something I would like to do even in here, even though in City Skylines it's obviously a bit stupid because people don't really care that tram is in the way, and vice versa, of course. So but that's like a price to pay for that particular thing. Now, what kind of color am I going to do on this surface? I finally decided to actually use this light green that I was already doing at the station. I suppose that I am going to do this light green everywhere else. It's right now not exactly a very good contrast with all the grass around the area, but you have to keep in mind that there is not going to be any grass around this area because it's going to be just all high density stuff, right? Right now it's obviously not there because it's not built, but later this is pretty much going to be the only green color in this area. So I suppose it kind of makes sense to put it here. And I just really like it. It's a good contrast with, for example, the orange kind of grayish building of all these gravel and concrete surfaces and the bricks and all the other things around here. There are a couple of course yellow colors with, for example, these third rails, some details on buildings, and we don't really have a lot of blue, but we're going to deal with that in the next episode. Actually, we are going to introduce a lot of very good looking blue color in this area. And we also don't really have like nice red color in this place. So why not just paint all these roads below with red? Because they are going to be just for buses. So it makes perfect sense. I absolutely loved this detailing when I was doing that bus terminal at the Aurelia like suburb station, kind of towards the end of the series. And I really wanted to continue with that. So doing all kinds of these different intersections differently. I also decided that I don't really want to do like classic looking crosswalks in the city, because just to do something new, I suppose. And I'm just going to do these kinds of parallel thick lines. And it's looking clean. It's looking really good in this place. Now, when it comes to detailing these open surfaces, I don't really want to go that ham because there are going to be lots of people, right, walking down here. So I really don't want to just screw it up with some kind of detailing, just kind of clutter the areas. So right now the places are probably going to feel very empty in the cinematics, but that's because we don't have any people walking around here. So that's going to be fixed obviously later. But anyway, this is the finished thing. And I also already put some kind of trams in here so that you guys can see how it's going to look with the vehicles. And I'm using new vehicles in Asturis, obviously, completely different compared to Aurelia, and I really like them. They are looking really good. These are the double-decker trams, kind of similar to the railways that I used in Aurelia, but they just look different. They are much longer. They're going to be much higher capacity. So these are not just trams. You can probably think of them as some kind of light rail as well, but they are just tiny compared to all the rest of the vehicles, of the rail vehicles on the upper levels. But anyway, I really like this place, how it turned out. All the colors, all the different lights actually. below the surface. I was also trying to do some kind of like night view of this area to make sure that it's like just light up nicely. I'm probably going to show it here because why not? I'm not really ready to do like a cinematic night view cinematic of the city yet because it's not really looking all that presentable at this point, but it's definitely something that I'm, thinking about. Anyway, guys, that is going to be all for today's episode of Asturis. Next time, we are going to stay around the main train station, even though we are going to move slightly further away. I would like to build a slightly different project on the side of that main train station building and kind of continue that green level of the urban railway. All right. So guys, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here today. Hope you liked today's Asturis episode. If you did, then you can do the usual. Thumbs up, share the video, subscribe, comment. And you can also become a channel member if you really like this content, if you want to support it directly. Big thanks to all the channel members that we currently have. I really, really do appreciate it. That's all. Thank you again, and goodbye.